Welcome back. Your host, Alencia Johnson.
How we doing? We got some good nuggets. Are y'all still here? Y'all still with me? I know it's a family reunion. We want to see everybody, but we got work to do. All right? All right, so thank you, Alfonso, Ty, Micheline, Aletha, and Aaliyah for such an amazing conversation to start our day and giving us a lot of action steps. Next, we're going to talk about something that I know we've heard a lot about and we are all using, whether we know it or not. We're going to talk about AI and making AI work for you. Opportunity, ethics, and impact. Moderated by Chike Aguh, Senior Advisor at Accenture and Senior Advisor for the Project on Workforce at Harvard, who will be joined by Imamu Tomlinson, CEO of Vituity, and Dr. Safia Noble, another author of Algorithms of Oppression and professor at UCLA. Please give it up for our next panel.
Good morning. Let's try that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Have you had fun so far? So first of all, my name is Chike Aguh. I serve at Accenture and a project on workforce at Harvard as a senior advisor, and really excited for this conversation today. And this conversation could be twice or three times the length that we have, but we're going to try and do a lot quickly. And you heard what this conversation is about. It is about artificial intelligence. And why are we having this conversation? We are having this conversation because this is a technology, if we think about the internet, if we think about social media, this is a technology that will be as or likely multiple-fold more impactful. And if we think about the time that we are in this artificial intelligence revolution, it feels like it's been forever. I want to put it in context. If I had to analogize what time we're in, if you relate it to the internet, this is like 1996 related to the internet. If we're talking about social media, this is like 2006. We are in the very, very early stages. And like Van Jones said in a conversation I watched about a year ago, he said this is the ultimate equity moment for artificial intelligence. Why? Because the same amount of white people, 96%, and the same amount of black people, 96%, know the exact same amount about AI, which is 0. We laugh, but that's actually an opportunity. And so the conversation that we want to have today is how do we capture the promise and mitigate the peril, because both are real. And this is the conversation that I wish we had had when the internet was first dawning, when social media was first dawning, and a ton of other technologies. And by the way, there are many more technologies as powerful to come. So to have this conversation, I'm joined by two amazing people who are much smarter than I am. We have, to my right, Imamu Tomlinson, who is the CEO of Vituity. To my left, we have Dr. Safia Nobles from UCLA with a title that is far too long for me to say, that would take the rest of the panel to say, but we have the two right people to talk about the promise and the peril and how we mitigate them both. And so I'm gonna start as an optimist, because at times I think we need that sometimes. So, Mr. Tomlinson, I want you to talk about artificial intelligence in two ways. One, from a macro level, talk about the opportunities that you see for, frankly, for business leaders like are in this room to do a lot with a little, which our community has done for a very long time. But artificial intelligence allows that on a scale that we've never seen. Talk about what that looks like at a macro level, and then talk about how that has appeared in your business. And please tell us more about Vituity, which is a company that if you don't know about, you should.
Yeah, so hello, everybody. So just to give you a little background, so I'm an ER doc by training. Yeah, somebody out there. And again, I know the clock's ticking, but I think this is important to the message that I'm going to give. So I'm of Jamaican descent, born in Toronto, lived everywhere in the United States, and now live in Dallas. So with that, I'm the CEO of Vituity. It's a healthcare partnership. Basically, we provide healthcare services in about 27 states. Last year, we took care of 12 million patients. I'm also the president of Vituity Cares, an organization founded through Vituity to take care of patients without the bureaucracy of healthcare. So last year, we provided about $8 million worth of care for free. And so really, at the throes of caring for people, but also caring for people without the bureaucracy in healthcare. Now, AI is very interesting. You say, I'm an optimist. I believe that this is that moment where nobody really knows, but some people know. And I think that we have the resources, intelligence, and the, sort of the ability to do things. And I think that's an opportunity for us to build on our own. I think that it's great for us to be critical of what's going on in AI, but I think we really need to get together and build those AI systems for our own. We are using some AI in the care for patients. We're using it in one respect as a healthcare navigation tool. So when people get discharged from the hospital, we have a AI, both people and AI power to make sure they get their follow-up, get to the right place to get their follow-up to provide better care. And then we also have an AI automated documentation system that also creates differential diagnosis for patients and make sure they get the best care with the right documentation for them.
So go a little further. If you were talking to someone, imagine you when you were first starting Vituity, and I imagine you did a lot of stuff yourself. Usually when I meet people who are starting businesses, the CEO is the CFO, the COO, they sweep the floors, they take out the trash, they do all that. Talk about how AI could have made that different and better back when you were first starting Vituity. How could have hopefully you gotten a little more sleep, maybe not spend as much money as initially to kind of get going.
Yeah. You talk about back in the day, I think that was yesterday. Took out the trash. I'm one of those. I'm a pace setter by leadership style, so I do all that. I think where it makes AI's. We had this debate with my CFO a couple of days ago. AI really is about, for us, at least in healthcare, about automation. There's recurrent things that come up that need vast amounts of data looked through and figured out and find out what the right thing is in that data. I think that's where predominantly where we use it. And to your point, back in the day, if we had those things, it would make my life easier. But I will say that I don't think that AI can ever replace creativity. AI is about logic and boxes. Yeah, somebody's clapping. I got one clap, by the way. But AI is about logic and boxes, and human nature is about breaking boxes and just doing things completely ridiculous. And so creativity is born out of that. Black people have been born out of that. And so I think that there's an opportunity for us to build AI in a way that isn't so algorithmic and so logical.
So, Dr. Nobles, and let me kind of preface the first question. The way I talk about AI is that when you use one of these tools, you basically have the summation of all human wisdom and all human stupidity in one place. That is an AI engine. And that's the way I think about it. So you just heard from Mr. Tomlinson about, hey, here's how we can use this wisdom to help a business. But there's the flip side. All of human stupidity, all of human bias, all the things that humans do, but done wrong, but at scale in an AI engine. And so let me use one example. We actually did this last week at Accenture with a client. If you were to put up Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, and ask it all the same question, pick a number between 1 and 50. If I did that in this room right now, I would get, with 10 people, probably 5 to 10 different answers. If you do that with those 4 different tools, but by 4 different companies, you get one number, 27. Why? I don't know. But I pointed out as that is a way that very, very smart thing, if you look at the GPT 4.0, 8 billion parameters, meaning 8 billion different rules inside of it, it is systemically wrong like that. Take that a step further with something, frankly, not so benign, which is you had a tool that you had a company that used AI to try and find, hey, tell me the characteristics of someone who will be successful at my company. They did that, and then they tried to use that when they were picking applicants. They only picked men. Why? Because the company really didn't have any women. Therefore, the data from which the tool can answer the question was men. Therefore, it made the assumption that, frankly, only men are successful here, which is not logically true. So I say that to say these tools can also be systemically wrong in ways that are impactful. Impactful in a moral way, but also impactful from a business sense. So throwing this to you, I would love to hear you talk about that. How do we mitigate against that peril? Talk more about what that peril looks like in real time, but then also, frankly, these tools are out in the wild. So how do we, these people who are leading enterprises, mitigate those on the micro level and also help to advocate to mitigate those on the macro level?
You said a lot of things that we could spend a lot of time unpacking. I think the first thing I want to say is that even with everything that I'm about to say, I am also an optimist, and that the people who've been leading the charge globally, but especially in this country, about the potential downfalls, the harms, the discrimination, embedded in a variety of technologies, including AI, have been Black women and have been women of color in this country. So it's very, very important that we understand that part of the reason we see that and we understand that is because we are very close to the discriminatory effects, and our communities are. And so we have been the watchdogs on these technologies and on these companies. And to me, nothing could be more optimistic and generous and loving than trying to protect our civil and human rights from the encroachments. Having said that, I think it's important we understand, first of all, when we talk about AI, we could be talking about anything. We really have to disambiguate this term and be very specific about what we're talking about when we talk about AI. I think most people, to your example, I mean, you gave two very different examples. You talked about large language models, and then you talked about a resume screening tool. Those are two very different kinds of AI, and generally the public doesn't understand that. And of course, your type of medical diagnostic and documentation work is also a totally different kind of AI. So let's talk about how to think about AI. And I think part of it is thinking about the way in which you are going to adopt different kinds of technologies for different kinds of projects in your companies, and being able to understand whether they're already designed for or against our communities or for your objectives, particularly if you're doing work that is pointed toward Black communities or communities of color or poor people or anyone that these technologies are traditionally not designed for. So part of the reason, let's take the first example on a resume screening tool. It's not just that the data that trains a resume screening tool, which you might use, which really many people are encouraged to use, especially in small businesses, as a labor cost-saving tool. It means that the data that's been used to train that has also done things like it's classified people according to particular criteria, so that if you are, let's say you were the captain of the women's basketball team, the fact that you put women in your resume could potentially screen you out, right? Or that you play sports that aren't lacrosse or polo or golf. So the massive training data that is behind so many of the off-the-shelf kinds of products that are put in our hands are trained on people who don't look like us, and they use data that doesn't always look like us. On the flip side, they also can be trained by the most stereotypical and discriminatory kinds of data about us. And I think this will be something that we will see, for example, in the ways in which healthcare tools, for example, often do not account for things like histories of medical discrimination. So if you are from a community that is, and I'm just going to start with women because I'm part of a community of women. Women in this country are medically discriminated against, and there's massive literature to support this. So if the AI has been trained, to your point, it's like taking in all the stupidity and all the wisdom. I would say that is a powerful overstatement, because it certainly is not looking, it is not trained to be wise. It is actually looking for the statistical likelihood of one word to follow the next word. And that's really what a large language model is. But let's say you take that large language model and you use it, and you're trying to then use it as a diagnostic for something in healthcare. Well, you know that Black people are understudied and underdocumented in all kinds of medical literature. We are least likely to be included in clinical trials. So the data already, again, is powerfully discriminatory in the way that we have been traditionally discriminated against. So these kinds of things are very, very important to understand, both how data is collected and understood. What is data, in fact? Most of these tools are trained on data that is available. And we have been very good at keeping some things to ourselves. Not all of our business is for everybody. So that also means it's not in the training data. So I think one of the things that we have is just a way to look forward is to be thinking about, as we're making our own products and projects that are AI driven. They need to be designed around our values, digital twins, so to speak, of our contexts, because the kinds of things that are coming out of the big tech companies are just not going to be that. There's no market for them for that. I think what you're doing, Mu, is actually really demonstrative of the kinds of opportunities, which is trying to build hyper-local kinds of AI that is deeply contextual, because what these technologies are often doing is they're very good if you have discrete data classifiers. I'm a PhD in information science, so that just means I'm a nerd in classification. So if you have categories that are easy and very clear and deeply classified, that's great. But so much of our lives cannot be classified under the current kinds of frameworks, and that means we cannot be read or understood by these technologies. And so we'll have to figure out, I think, whether we want to make these kinds of digital twins that are in our context where we can test technologies and AI. And honestly, as we do that and as we think about that, we will want to think about maintaining control over those kinds of data trusts and making sure that they cannot be used against us.
I want to pick up one point that you talked about, which is if you think about, when I think about generative AI, let's just use that term for a quick second. It's really a three-part equation. First are the algorithms, the rules. Again, if you use a ChatGPT, I believe it's, GPT-4, I think it's like 8 billion of these rules and parameters. Secondly is the training data, which is the data that you feed into those rules. And the last piece, which you actually don't talk a lot about, is the compute, the cloud. You have to put all that somewhere and have it crunch all that stuff. If you don't look at any one of those categories, there aren't really more than probably 5 to 10 companies per one of those categories who are part of that. So you have, call it 30-ish companies, and by the way, there are companies that do both. You have 30 companies on the face of the earth that are guiding, one can argue, the most powerful technology that we are seeing to this point. And the point that you made about how do the people in this room increase that number of people and companies making these tools or parts of those tools is really, really important. Whether that be for discrete cases like in healthcare, whether that be for more macro cases that we haven't quite found yet. And I'm imagining, I can't quite see all of you because of the lights, that someone in this room is going to be one of those people who frankly expands that set. Because when I watch the markets every day and I hear talk about AI, it is the same 15 companies whose names I hear. And by the way, if you were to look at those companies, the Magnificent Seven, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Meta, I can name the other four, they are 1/3 of the S&P 500 currently, today. Our entire economy rides on, one can argue, 7 companies who are deeply invested here. How do we expand that to 10, to 20, to hundreds, and have those companies be helmed by people who look like the folks who are in this room, partially? That's a big question I want to leave to this group. We have a bit of time left, and I want to come back to the both of you. And I'll end off with a question that ended off our last panel. Imagine that you have a young business leader who has the potential to grow something big, and they're asking you, this AI thing, what should I do? How should I think about this? What is the thing that you want to leave them with for this conversation? AI, what does it mean to me? How should I be using it to grow this thing that I want to grow?
Yeah, this is a lot. You said a lot there, so I'm going to ramble a little bit. I would start by saying one of the things we talked about behind stage is the impact, I think, the way I see the world. And one is be disagreeable, right? Means that the way to learn is to actually not accept. I think black people have done that a lot, right? See what it is, don't just accept it, and try to learn more about it by disagreeing with it, but be optimistic. Understand that you can change the world, and then be relentless and never stop. So that's what I would tell anybody that's building currently is disagree. What's the status quo? These 7 companies, we talk about these 7 companies like they were built, today. They were built with nothing. I'm ashamed that I don't know each one of you in the room, right? Because that is power. So I think that one of the things that we do, and I don't want to get too philosophical, and I want to give you time, is that I think Martin Luther King was absolutely amazing, right? Hero. The challenge, I think, with that mindset is we're still asking to be in rooms. We're still asking to be present in rooms. I'm a grown-ass man. I don't want to, excuse me. Sorry, Alfonso, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's the last time I'll be invited. But But I don't want to ask to be in rooms anymore. I want to be more like Marcus Garvey. I want to get with all of y'all and build. And so the information I would give to the AI companies, or as you're thinking about building, you might have to get the quote unquote inferior product, the product that's built for black people, that's small, that's just at the beginning. It's just where Zuckerberg was at a while ago. And we might have to build, and we might not need to use Copilot or NVIDIA. And that means that at Vituity, we might be behind a little bit for now. But if we can get all of you all together to build together, and get some of the athletes and entertainers too, if y'all in here, I think that we have immense power. But I think we forget that because we're still asking to be in the room. So that long-winded, that's my answer.
Same question.
I think the future is going to be small AI, and I don't think we should be trying to scale to become one of the FANG companies or the major monopolies. I actually don't think, I think their business models are predicated upon profound extraction, manipulation, and destruction, and there's no getting around that, and I wrote a whole book about that. What we need instead is to be thinking about small applications, pro-social tech. The kinds of tech you're talking about is anti-social tech. And we can talk about that, again, for hours. What we need to be thinking about is the kinds of values that we hold around our rights, around we just saw the study that came out from MIT last week that generative AI, large language models, are decreasing our cognitive capacity by 41%. We don't want to be dumber from using these kinds of technologies. Are you kidding? We've got the research, and people like me and others, we're trying to do the research so that you can grab a hold of it and say, okay, how can I be smarter? So what we know is we don't want to dumb down our businesses and our opportunities with the stochastic parrots, as Timnit Jabru and Emily Bender say, which is just the nonsense that comes out of large language models, all right? What we want is deep knowledge and that we can apply to make us better. And we're actually living in a moment where people want more connection. They want to be known and understood more deeply. We are literally living this moment today when 17 million people are going to be kicked off of health insurance. And black women, black people in particular, are going to be the most harmed by the politics of the day. So this is a huge opportunity for us to figure out how will we stand in the gap and meet the needs of people. And it is not going to be by using the tools that the very people who have kind of created these conditions. All right. So I think we need to just remember that AI, it's political, it's social, and it's technical. And if we keep that in mind the way we do, I mean, we were talking backstage, you said we were in 2006 about social media, and I was like, right. And if we knew what we knew today about Facebook back in 2006, would we have let it collapse most of the Western liberal democracies? Would we have let it push people off the voter rolls and disenfranchise people with political disinformation? Would we have let it set us back the way it has in terms of the civil rights and human rights agenda in the United States? We certainly would not have. So that's the kind of knowledge and analysis we need to bring into this AI moment and say, what's the future that I want that isn't a future of exploitation, that's actually a future of possibility? And then we will design completely different kinds of projects, and it's going to be amazing.
As I said at the start of this, we could have this conversation literally for another half hour, another hour and a half, because there is so much here. Let me just go back to where we began, which is how do you capture the promise, mitigate the peril? And you've heard a ton of wisdom up here on where to start. The only thing that I might leave you with is this. I generally believe that the choices about these technologies are not going to be made by, frankly, fancy people in large tech companies who are making these tools right now. I also don't necessarily believe that the future will be determined by people in DC, like where I used to work. It's going to be determined by, frankly, a lot of the leaders who are here in this room. It is easy to believe that this is happening to us. It is not happening to us. We have the ability to make it happen or not make it happen. And the main thing that I would leave you with is recognize that you can make it happen or not happen. And let's make it happen the way that we want it to, for the sake of our businesses, for our communities, and for our people. So with that, please give a round of applause to my amazing co-panelists. And let's also give an amazing round of applause to the Global Black Economic Forum for making the space for this conversation.